What if the loneliest person you know is also the most successful one? Not the one sitting alone, not the one who looks lost, the one everyone admires, the one who seems to have figured it out, the one whose life from the outside looks exactly like what you are supposed to want. Psychology has been studying this exact type of person. And what the research reveals is one of the most quietly painful contradictions in modern human experience. You can build everything the world told you to build, and still feel completely alone inside it. Stay with me, because by the end of this, one question is going to stay with you longer than anything else in this video. The first thing psychology wants you to understand is that successful loneliness looks nothing like ordinary loneliness. Ordinary loneliness has visible signs, empty weekends, unanswered messages, a life with obvious gaps. But successful loneliness is different. The calendar is full. The messages are answered. The life looks complete from every angle that anyone bothers to look at. What is missing is not presence. What is missing is depth. Psychologists describe this as the distinction between social quantity and social quality. A person can be surrounded by dozens of people, colleagues, followers, acquaintances, and still experience profound isolation. Because the brain does not register connection based on how many people are around. It registers connection based on whether those people actually know you. And the person who looks most successful is often the person least known by anyone around them. Here's why this happens. Success, for many people, begins with a trade, usually made so early and so gradually that they never noticed making it. They learned that performing well created safety, that being capable earned approval, that being impressive kept people close in a way that simply being themselves never quite did. So they built a version of themselves for public consumption, polished, reliable, competent, the version that gets results, wins respect, and never lets anyone see the moments of uncertainty underneath. And it worked. The performance created a life that looked exactly right from the outside. But here is what also happened. The more successful the performance became, the harder it got to step outside of it. Because the people around them, the colleagues, the connections, the carefully curated relationships, they fell in love with the performance, not the person beneath it. And so the successful, lonely person finds themselves in a specific kind of trap. They cannot be less than excellent without risking everything the excellence built. They cannot show uncertainty without undermining the confidence everyone depends on them to project. They cannot say I am not okay without watching the carefully constructed version of themselves begin to crack. Psychologists call this the imposter dynamic, not the ordinary fear of being found out as incompetent, but the deeper terror of being found out as human, as someone who sometimes does not know, who sometimes struggles, who sometimes sits with the same fears as everyone else, but cannot say so because the role they are playing does not have room for that, and so they keep going, performing, achieving, building, alone in the middle of a life that looks like everything. Here's the part that neuroscience adds to this picture. The human brain is built for a very specific kind of connection, not broad connection, not having many people who know your name or recognize your work. Deep connection, the experience of being genuinely known by at least one other person, of not having to translate yourself before speaking, of existing in someone else's presence without the performance running in the background. Research consistently shows that the absence of this deep connection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain, not metaphorically. Neurologically, the brain processes profound loneliness the same way it processes being physically hurt. This means the successful lonely person is not just emotionally isolated. They are in a kind of pain that their success makes invisible, even to themselves. Now here is where it becomes important to be honest, because there are two versions of this pattern, and they look almost identical from the outside. The first is someone who has genuinely prioritized building over connecting, not from fear, but from a season of life that required focus. This person is lonely by circumstance, not by architecture, and the path back to connection is relatively straightforward once they recognize what has been missing. The second is someone whose success became a defense system, who built the performance, specifically because being seen, really seen, felt dangerous, who learned early that vulnerability was a liability and excellence was protection. For this person, the loneliness is not a side effect of success. It is the price of the safety that success provides. Ask yourself honestly, When was the last time someone who knows your achievements also knows your fears? Not one or the other. Both. Because that is the specific gap that successful loneliness lives in. Here's what I want you to know. The achievements are real. The competence is real. The life you have built is genuinely yours. But a life built entirely for external consumption will always feel hollow from the inside, no matter how solid it looks from the outside, because the brain does not care how impressive you are. It cares whether you are known. And being known, really known, requires something that success cannot substitute for. It requires letting at least one person see the version of you that exists beneath the performance, the uncertain version, the tired version, the version that sometimes does not know what comes next. That is not weakness. That is the only version of you that can actually connect with another human being. The performance connects with people's admiration, but only the real version connects with their hearts. And somewhere, quietly, you already know the difference. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt completely alone in a life that looked completely full? Just yes or no. And if you want more psychology that sees beneath the surface of things, subscribe to Psychology Unpacked. Understanding yourself starts here.